Now, government has been called upon to reconsider its directive of having locally generated revenue remitted to the central government. Now, the Shadow Minister for Local Government, Betty Naluima, says such a directive affects the performance of the sector, which derails national development. Now, this is contained in her motion on local government enhancement, which comes barely days after a local government assessment report was released. Now, we're still working on that story. We'll be giving it to you when it is ready. Kampala City has over the time experienced a number of incidents of collapsing buildings, all happening in short intervals. Now, just a few days ago, a building collapsed in Kisenyi, an urban village in the capital, Kampala, killing 6 people on site and injuring many. Susan Nawonga gives an in-depth analysis into the several buildings that have collapsed, but with no substantial reports so far put to the public domain.
In 2018, Kampala Capital City Authority revised regulations governing construction of buildings in the city. The interventions were aimed at addressing, among others, incidents of buildings collapsing at various sites in the city. Under this new arrangement, a developer was required to keep a copy of approved architecture and structural drawings and records of inspection on the site, including dates of inspection, signatures, observation comments, and instructions issued by the technical team. This was anticipated that the new job card would, among others, allow for improvement of professional responsibility during the course of the construction, improve monitoring of the sites, protection of workers and sites, and increase the liability of contractors handling the construction work. A developer was also required, before obtaining a building plan and a job card, to prove that they had a qualified contractor and the site is supervised by competent building professionals at all stages of the construction.
But also, KCC as the supervising local authority has a responsibility to ensure that buildings that are constructed illegally are either removed or brought into compliance with the law. In this particular case, we see a case where the laws were clearly violated and there was no action taken.
However, following continuous incidents of collapsing buildings, especially at the city center, there seems to be laxity in the implementation of workable laws. In a recap of incidents, in May 2018, a building in Mawanga zone, Buziga, caved in, killing several people. In 2019, a perimeter wall collapsed at Lohana Academy, killing 6 street children after heavy downpour that weakened the wall. In October 2019, a building went down around Bakulia, Kampala suburb, killing 1 person and injuring many. In January 2020, a building collapsed in Jinja, also killing 4 people instantly. Subsequently, a similar incident revisited Kansanga in May 2020, when a building under construction collapsed, killing several people.
I've never seen a report presented before this August House following investigations as to the causes of the collapse of these structures in the country.
Such fury of destruction has revisited several sites, especially around Kampala capital city, with the recent one being Kisenyi, where a building collapsed, killing at least 10 and injuring many others. The frequency of these incidents call for joint interventions from different stakeholders.
The remaining buildings are not safe, and we've contacted the relevant people in KCCA to ensure or to carry out what needs to be done.
To whether the bodies charged with monitoring and planning constructions, especially in urban centers, are relevant, remains an open question.
We will be engaging with the KCCA on this particular investigation to understand what their challenges are in terms of enforcement, and also how we can be able to support them to build their capacity to be able to actually enforce the stop orders that they issue.
According to preliminary reports, however, it indicates that a number of buildings that have collapsed, it's either the contractor has employed non-skilled personnel, use of low construction materials, poor construction designs, and overloading of the building with construction materials. Susan Nawonga reporting for UBC TV.
Thanks, Susan, for that report. And in a related development, the Uganda Engineers Registration Board has accused the site engineers of the collapsed building in Kisenyi, a suburb of Kampala, capital city, for behaving unprofessionally and breaching the ethical standards of engineering. The board chairman, Dr. Kennedy Mutenyi, wants the site engineer and the supervisor held accountable for the laxity and the death of the 6 people who died on site. Nasir Ruwama reports.
Uganda Engineers Registration Board has taken an assessment inspection of the collapsed site in Kisenyi, a Kampala suburb, to ascertain the main cause of the collapsed building.
Is that for one reason or the other, the developers move very fast. They build structures very fast for obvious reasons. Because if you got a loan, you want to reap back the money early enough. But because the regulation or the enforcement may not be as good as it is, some key critical things are left out.
The board members are choosing supervisors over substandard building materials used at the site.
Meaning, we have had people complaining it's also about to go down. So as government, we are going to carry out the tests and then advise on the way forward. But what I can leave with you is that enforcement is what is causing all these problems, and our developers not following the law.
Kampala Capital City Authority engineers are equally blamed for being reluctant in the exercise of inspecting the progress of building sites in Kampala.
I think the enforcement, and this should be under either the KCCA, who are the authorities here, but also the National Building Review Board. They have to put in place mechanisms and systems to track right from the design office up to the moment that the building is occupied. Now, from what we have seen in the experience, there seems to be some lapse in between there.
The Engineers Registration Board is hunting for the engineer of the collapsed site. Kampala developers urged to always look for only registered engineers to save lives.
To look around for the people who are in charge of supervision of the structure, we find people who learn engineering from the streets of Kisenyi. And those ones, we cannot punish them because they are not engineers. So those ones are supposed to be taken over by the police. The police there has to act on them. Maybe
several buildings have been collapsing, claiming their lives in Kampala, and investigations are instituted. However, no report ever released, and no engineer nor developer ever brought to book. Abdul Nasir Lubwama for UBC News.
Now, government has been called upon to reconsider its deriving locally generated revenue remitted to the central government. Shadow Minister for Local Government, Betty Naulima, says such a directive affects the performance of the sector, which derails national development. This is contained in her motion on local government enhancement, which comes barely days after a local government assessment report was released. With more on that, here is our parliamentary reporter, Henry Okrot.
Just a day after the local government assessment report was released, concerns have been raised as to why some administrative units performed better than others.
There are other districts who are incapacitated. There is nothing completely like local revenue.
The report put Ibanda as the best performing district in the country with 82%, as Bugweri performed poor 5%. Karenga district in Karamoja sub-region was also listed amongst the 10 districts that performed poorly.
Most of these new district engineer, the acting PRO, the acting natural resource, and some others have never been appointed as substantial.
This kind of poor performance has been attributed to several factors across the country.
Many RDCs have made mistakes here and there. All over the country, you have seen blows elsewhere. You have seen where an RDC was slapped by LC5 because of their behavior. Once they come to a district, they think they are above everybody.
So it all goes back to people receiving services from government, and if they are receiving services, are they appreciating them? If there are gaps, have they been identified?
Also cited is poor remuneration for councillors. lack of motivation for technical staff, and non-actualization of decentralization.
If you look at lower local government, for Amoro Town Council, where I come from, when councillors sit for their meeting, they are being paid only 15,000 shillings per sitting. And the policy says they must sit only 6 times per year. It means the lower local councils in my district, Amoro, for the whole year, they get 90,000 Uganda shillings. So the resources is totally not there in the local government.
Even from the operations of private schools, many local governments derive their revenue from there. They are now unable. They are down. Many other local governments, they will derive from the licenses. They have the property tax. Talk about property tax. They have hotel tax.
That a motion to that effect has been moved by Wakiso Woman MP Betty Hoima, seconded by Arun North legislator Santa Okot. It requires a resolution of Parliament to urge government to reverse its directive requiring local governments to remit all local revenues to the consolidated fund.
Local governments, they really have to tussle it out to move to the different points to collect localized revenue. But at the end of it all, they really have to go, that very money has to go to the center at the discretion of someone at Ministry of Finance. That's when that person is supposed to warranty, is supposed to know when they're supposed to guarantee, and that local government is able to spend.
Show way it is in the document, so that if you feel persuaded to reconsider.
So the position of government is very clear that we don't need to amend this. We should continue working with
of the 1995 Ugandan Constitution. The Constitution provides for a decentralization system of governance, where functions, powers and responsibilities are devolved and transferred from the government to local government units. Henry Okurut, UBC.
Thanks, Henry, for that report there. Now, the Ministry of Local Government, with support from a development initiative for Northern Uganda, DINU, has procured ICT equipment for the local selected district local governments. The LG packs are mandated to examine reports of the Auditor General, internal audit reports, and reports of commissions, district chairpersons or mayors, and the chief administrative officers or town clerks. Let's have more in this report.
The provision of ICT equipment is part of the broader plan of the Ministry of Local Government to automate tracking of implementation of the Local Government Public Accounts Committee recommendations. Officiating the event, the Line Permanent Secretary, Benjamin Kumumanya, tasked recipient local governments to put the equipment to the rightful use for desirable returns on investment.
For decentralization, we were determining what was in Karamoja, what was in Kigezi, what was everywhere. It was unscientific, it was unmanageable, it was unachievable. But people in their wisdom said, no, the best way is to empower all the areas, take charge of their decisions, take charge of their affairs, but be guided professionally, technically. And this was well captured in section 95, 96, 97 of the Local Government Act, which says central government can coordinate, can formulate policy, can formulate standards, can be able to train, build capacity, inspect, monitor, but allow local government to take charge of these things. So when we give you this equipment, we are freeing you by empowering you. And this is in addition to all other things we have got from a program like DINU under the stewardship of UNCDF as our main partner and European Union as the funder.
The donation comes at the heels of government's plans to roll out the parish development model. Kumumanya is optimistic that the ICT equipment will facilitate data collection, storage and dissemination for easy accountability of government resources. Development initiative for Northern Uganda, DINU project, to be able to attract more funding from different development partners.
For us, the achievements of DINU, you have heard that it is going to end not long ago from here. When a project does very well, more projects are produced. I was managing a project in this ministry here between 1999 to 2004-05. When it did very well, it was in community access roads, it was in roadside markets. You can see we are still doing markets. It was in. Then many projects, Kayip, what these markets you see in Moroto, where Sorot have come as a product of that work. I encourage you. Let's capture the good achievements of this program. Then we can go to NCDF and we can go to you and say, look here, this is what we have achieved as part of our big agenda, and therefore we want more support to be able to continue serving the population, to continue fulfilling 2040 vision for Uganda, to continue implementing the NDP 3, and also to continue localizing the Sustainable Development Goals.
Financed by the European Union, Development Initiative for Northern Uganda, DINU, is a project whose main objective is to consolidate stability and eradicate poverty, among others, in the 18 districts of northern Uganda that include Otuke, Abim, Amdat, Yumbe, and Lamo. Dokas Kimono, UBC News.
To Hoima District now, where Hoima District local chairman, LC5 chairman, I beg your pardon, Hadid Kirungi, and 3 other district executive officials appeared before the Hoima Chief Magistrates Court Tuesday evening on charges of forgery. Hadid has been charged together with his vice chairperson, Benson Chiche, Jackson Mugenyi Mulinda Ambura, the district secretary for production and natural resources, and Geoffrey Kumakech, the District Secretary for Finance and Administration. Take a watch.
The court will hear you and make appropriate decisions. A1, A2, A2, A3, and A4.
Following the indefinite closure of schools after the outbreak of COVID-19, there has been an increase in cases of child labor across the country. The major contributor of child labor is the rise in poverty due to the pandemic and loss of livelihood by many families. Our senior reporter Susan Nawonga was in one of stone quarry sites in Mukono district and caught up with some parents crushing stones with their children to make ends meet. Let's have this report.
Following the outbreak of COVID-19 in March 2020, government took a hard decision to temporarily halt operations of some sectors, not sparing the education sector. This saw many families lose their source of livelihood, giving rise to poverty and cases of child labor. A number of families are now relying on child labor in order to improve their chances of attaining basic necessities. On this hill in Mbalala, Mukono are several stone quarry sites employing over 3,000 people. Among those seeking livelihood in this site are also school-going children below the age of 18, working together with their parents to break, smash, and loading stones on trucks. Most of the parents, mainly women, many of whom are widows and single mothers, say their visible sources of livelihood were cut off, which compelled them to opt for stone quarrying with the support of their children for survival.
Bali singo talina mwami talina nga yalina okola kyokufaayo naki n'abaana be
kugamba ndi munakola ki ndi mukyala mpangisa ndina mwana waka yenze taata yenze mama so ndina kuyiza wano.
According to a report by Save the Children carried out in May 2020, about 56% of Ugandans had noticed an increase in child labor since the beginning of the lockdown.
Enkola n'abaana bange tufune ekyokulya basajja baatudduka dda tweyiyanga bakazi olwa COVID ono eyajja.
Also in the site are youth, elderly and pregnant mothers whose livelihood was equally affected by the pandemic. Joan, once a nursery teacher, is one of those we found in this site. Joan lost her job following closure of schools in March 2020.
I was renting, so the landlady wanted rent. I was alone. My husband stopped working. That was the life.
Both Joan and her husband, after losing their jobs, sought survival in this stone quarry to earn a living.
But me, I have a mentality that I can do any kind of work as long as I get the idea about it.
Rose Biogero, a mother of 8, has been working in this site for over 2 years. In search for additional money, Rose works with her children who are currently at home to supplement her income.
Si buli mwami nti ajasobola okuwa omukyala ki ekyokukozesa naye omukyala n'asala n'agamba kangende mu kirombe nkole ki nkole.
Jackson Lule has also been surviving on stone quarrying for over 30 years now, even given the underlying challenges.
Twagala gavumenti tuyambe ku bana abachina so basa wafuna emirimu ng'egyo eminene egikolebwa ne batuyamba funa tuwa chance fa abantu abawansi tuweereza abantu abe amayinja nga
galimu obulabe bungi kubanga n'okuttagatta oyinza okubanga osime ettaka liri kuyiikira n'ofa.
Although the stone quarry has helped them forge life, the decline in the purchase rate of stones and higher taxes has affected their earnings.
Twagala ku ssente entandikwa ez'entandikwa tusobole okuba mu mbeera embi.
N'abaana bali wane capital ng'olinawo miliyoni kale enganya mulimu gwangu ate.
It's worth noting that the stone quarries are so dangerous that sometimes most people have been buried by collapsing debris. Nonetheless, child labor is also criminal and punishable by law. Susan Naonga reporting for UBC TV.
Effects of COVID-19, they are not only to people who have not been employed, but also those who have been employed before. Tumbara now, where unknown assailants have murdered the officer in charge of Ruharo Police Post, Corporal Richard Agaba, in Kiijanangoma cell, Mbarara City. The murder has increased tension in Mbarara City, with residents appealing to security agencies to heighten the security in the city. We have more in this report.
Residents of Ruharo Ward in Mbarara City North Division woke up to a sad morning with the news of a cold-blood murder of their OC station Richard Agaba by unknown assailants. Agaba was hacked by wielding machete assailants.
This is the second incident because a few years back we lost another security personnel in Nkokonjero Cell Ruharo Ward, whereby somebody pretended to be a sick person and was lying along the road, and finally he disarmed the security person.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate that we lost a colleague in such a manner.
Because the security is not good in our area, but we hope the security is going to help us.
Interim reports indicate that Agaba succumbed to death on the way to Mbarara Regional Referral Hospital. Forensics from Mbarara Central Police Station arrived at the scene of crime and embarked on intensive investigations to establish what would be the details of the post-mortem report into the death.
We still have a big problem because I wonder how a criminal gets a gun when he's not conniving with security personnel. I don't know whether we have a shop, a personal shop, an individual shop for guns.
A police station home and power kumari. Akwa police post ntireka na hara home police home. Ondijiro police wo mukazi huku bomwazio agarka barracks.
It is said that Kopolo Agaba received a phone call from a boda rider, Awan Kiijanangoma, about the presence of armed robbers who had attacked. Kasasre Samson, the spokesperson for Rezi, explains more about the build-up events into the death of Agaba.
Last night, the OC was responding to a scene of crime. He found when the assailants had already left the scene in Kiijanangoma. So he decided to pursue them. So unfortunately, these are silent. So these thugs waylaid him, creating an ambush that he fell in, and later shot him while he was on a moving motorcycle.
However, Kasasira appealed to residents of Umbara City to be vigilant about strangers in their localities and report to police. The body of Agaba is still at Umbara Referral Hospital pending a postmortem report.
Do request anyone who might have information that is in connection with this murder to come out and give us that information so that it can help us in apprehending these assailants. Because if we do not apprehend them, they will keep on.
Sona Kampurira, Helen Barbara, reporting for UBC TV News.
Very sad news indeed from Mbarara City there. Now, members of Parliament on the Committee of Defence and Internal Affairs have asked government to give room to the committee to visit the affected victims in Luengo district. In a consultative meeting held at Luengo district headquarters, Minister for Security Major General Jim Muhwezi advised the committee to avoid scenes of crime which may jeopardize the investigations.
Members of Parliament on the Committee of Defence and Internal Affairs are in Masaka region following the recent attacks by machete-wielding thugs that have claimed lives and left others nursing wounds. At Rengo District Headquarters, the committee was received by the resident District Commissioner Hamani Sentongo together with the district officials.
Please deliberate and then guide us on what you think can be done in view of the fact that these scenes of crime haven't been reached to the public yet.
During the heated debate, the committee exchanged bitter words with the Security Minister General Jim Muhwezi for not allowing the committee to visit the affected victims in their communities.
Our principle here is not to hear from these officials. We heard from them, and we cannot keep on hearing from them. We want to hear from the hoi polloi, the common man, which is not here.
Let them identify us, the community. We go to the community, interact with them. And this business of saying we cannot interact with the victims, why are we here?
Minister of Internal Affairs and the Minister for Security. In other words, the Committee of Parliament was going to work with the executive. Executive is the Minister of Internal Affairs and the Minister for Security. But this is a joint mission. It's not only Parliament, it's Parliament plus the executive.
Rosemary Nyakikongoro, the committee chairperson, says visiting the victims could lead the committee to many unanswered questions.
But we are a committee of Parliament, and that's why we are going back to report to Parliament. We are not going to report to the Minister, but we are reporting to Parliament. So the Honourable Minister, can you please know that this is Parliament?
The committee members, mostly from opposition, cited Rule 73(2) of parliamentary procedure, but General Jim Muhwezi advised the committee that their interference would jeopardize the investigations and court proceedings that may tantamount to prejudice or contempt of court.
Of information. Information is about investigation. Yes, so I am just warning you that for me, I am not going to be part of that.
The minister's statement ignited controversies from members of the committee. Haruna Mtesasira, UBC.
Thanks, Haruna, for that report there. Now, following the outbreak of COVID-19, sectors that were badly affected, among others, was the education sector that left thousands of teachers jobless. Now, teachers attest to the fact that life is not easy for them and are asking for government intervention. Our reporter Sadamu Bale met with some teachers and filed the following report.
After the outbreak of COVID-19, the most affected sector was education, which to date remains shut until further notice. On the onset of viewers, it looks normal as the rain wets the ground and the new day rises in Kireka Banda, Kampala suburb. But for Hoima Anthony, it's another day for struggle to cope up with the new challenges as the day breaks. Omuna, who is a secondary teacher, was chased out of his rented house by his landlords for failure to pay rental dues and sought for accommodation to this school, where the school administration block has become his new home for the last quarter of the year. But it's not just Omuna living this difficult life. The 25-year-old Wilson Omoit, a primary teacher at one of the primary schools in Kireka, is unlucky too. His house that was given to him by a friend is submerged with water following today's heavy downpour, and is in rush to save his family from drowning.
To pick the family, and the family I'm with it, some are there, they have remained there inside, 2 of them, they are there inside. I don't know the way I'm going to get them out. So the situation is not all that good. The situation is bad, but before Corona came, I was a bit good when my job was there. But since I lost the job, now I'm now suffering, just suffering. And even that house, it's just a good Samaritan who just gave it to me to stay in it.
Omoit is now stranded with his family, with no place to go.
And it floods, water collects inside the house. Last time we slept in a bad way. Even today, I don't know where I'm going to sleep with the family. So this is kind of the situation. I think the president is watching UBC. I know the president is knowing the situation that we are passing through.
There are 2 rooms.
One is yours, one is for them.
One is mine, one is his.
Meanwhile, Omuna Anthony is out on his daily new workplace, a car wash in Buya Kireka in Kampala, to earn his daily bread.
I go and I construct. So if I get a chance of getting someone who can help me, who can call me for the job, I go. When I don't have that chance, which means that I will miss for the whole day. And which means that in a month, I will get one person who will call me for the work.
Being in here, okay, I left the village just to come and take care of them here. So now down the road 4 months, I've not been paying, and you cannot tell a landlord anything of that sort. He has been patient with me and decided to lock my things in the house.
He narrates that his new job has come with challenges.
I recall that time whereby one of my students whom I taught brought the car here accidental and found me here washing the car. So this student here had to shed tears and told me, "Master, don't touch my car," and just gave me what? Gave me money. That's one of the things. Then the other one is the community. That's where they perceive you now. They perceive as if now we become now laughing stock. You can't speak English where they are.
His new workmates narrates how a secondary teacher came to them asking for a job. The chairperson for Banda Zone, Salongo Kingi Michael, attests that several cases for teachers associated with rent defaults have been submitted to his office, and this has smeared the teaching profession with a bad image in society.
So even up to paying house rent, it is a problem to them. Again, they have resolved to see another work whereby they can fit, but all in all, they need assistance from the government artist to intervene with these private teachers, because as they are now, they are in which cases I wish I never became a teacher. I wish I took another career. I would have survived.
Bote bukyali na value yonna mu ggwanga wano. Era kati nze kyemmanyi abaana kati kizibu nnyo okwegomba okufuuka abasomesa okusinziira ku bulamu bwe balaba mu basomesa.
The plight of teachers is indeed worrying, and perhaps it's the right time for the stakeholders to perhaps take a step. But just like you can see right behind me, this here is a resident where 2 teachers are currently living, but because of rains, the entire place has been submerged with water. Sada Mubale, UBC News, Kampala.
That's the plight of teachers out there, and Saddam Mubale, thank you so much for having highlighted their plight. We'll now take a short break, but we'll return with much more.
I smile when I think of you, Uganda, my home. My home, I dance when I look at you, Uganda, my home. Oh, my Uganda.
I know, with you I'll always stay forever. I know, because I feel that we belong together. My home. On my heart, mommy, oh my Uganda.
Hey, mama.
My Uganda.
Oh,
my Uganda.
Oh,
my Uganda. My Uganda. Nigokona. My Uganda. Amari, Alemira. My Uganda.
At MTN, we look forward to starting another exciting journey together to grow our home, Uganda.
Getting GoTV was the best decision James has ever made. Finding a good place to watch football was never easy, but it was costly until James discovered something big. Now, he can finally enjoy the benefits of homegrown advantage with a decoder and 1 month of GoTV value. For just 25,000 shillings, enjoy the world's biggest leagues and cap competitions. GoTV Uganda, love it.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa only if we stay at home. Observe physical distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly, or get vaccinated now.
Experience 100% 4G speeds across Uganda with the Airtel 4G Pocket Wi-Fi available at 123,000 shillings only. It comes with a backup battery and 15 GB free for 1 month. Visit the nearest Airtel shop, device selling shop or Airtel online shop. www.airtel.co.ug/broadband-discover. Airtel, the smartphone network.
5 for 5, 5 times the winning, yeah. 5 times the happiness, yeah. 5 times the luckiness, yeah. 5 for 5, oh yeah. It's 5 for 5. 5 for 5, 5 times the money, yeah. 5 times the shopping, yeah. 5 times the prizes, yeah. 5 for 5, oh yeah. It's 5 for 5. 5 for 5.
Win 100,000 Uganda shillings weekly in the 5 for 5 jackpot. Simply download the Center mobile app. Click Center on the go to open your account online. Transact 5 times or more using Center Mobile, Center Visa, and Center Agent to stand a chance to win. The more you transact, the higher your chances of winning. So, participate in the 5 for 5 jackpot and win millions in daily and weekly prizes. The 5 for 5 jackpot is brought to you by Centenary Bank. Our bank. Centenary Bank is regulated by the Bank of Uganda. Customer deposits are protected by the Deposit Protection Fund.
Welcome back from that short break, and this is News Tonight here on UBC TV. Moving on now, religious leaders from different religions want government to reopen places of worship as the country closes on to the end of the 60-day partial lockdown on places of worship. The men of God have attributed the gruesome killings in Greater Masaka to lost hope and faith, and the perpetrators have chosen violence over God. Shedat Nasaku gives us more.
On 31st August, 20 leaders and practitioners petitioned government over failure to open worship centers, which could be a reason why Ugandans are choosing sin over mankind. These think if government doesn't rethink
and the mosques were open, I would go and confess my sins. But now I'm thinking, sin is okay.
But the things, the wickedness we see in Masaka is an issue for corporate prayer. Yeah. The wickedness, the disasters we see, the drought, all those manner of things are issues for which we must gather and plead for mercy before God.
They have advised government to consider changing the mindset of Ugandans through praise and worship for the better Uganda everyone needs.
We are thirsty. We would like the places of worship to be opened. Spiritual damage is too much. I feel it.
To those who are in authority, without the anchor of our moral fabric, which for many of us is actually our faith, will fall into pieces.
The person listens to them. And from the onset, they have been basically following the soaps to the dot. And therefore, there is no reason why we shouldn't open churches for people to pray.
They also want government to consider balancing spiritual needs and regulate all places of worship when reopened.
Is that we are challenging the discriminatory treatment that has been given to places of worship. We have very many businesses that have mammoth crowds operating, but when it comes to places of worship, then suddenly it has to,
News.
Haji Nsereko Mutumba has quashed the signed deal between Uganda Muslim Supreme Council and rival sheikhs, which happened at the end of last week. According to Mutumba, the idea of unity is being battered by personal interests, as we hear from Nasir Rubwama.
While meeting the rival group, the meeting was intended to create unity among different Muslim factions formerly dissented to the leadership at the Uganda Muslim Supreme Council.
Uganda Muslim Supreme Council will be the only body organizations endala obozigobye noza ntwandirongoosezaamu netugifula topmost body.
Kikonagana nti bano kwegatta kwaki kw'abasiraamu kwe twegatta, not always picking only few sheikhs, only sheikhs, and you bring them and you stand for a photograph and say that we have reached an agreement and we are going to president. I think
these Muslim leaders agreed on certain issues centered on amending the Muslim constitution. The senior Muslim cleric Haji Nsereko Mutumba has quashed the signed communique, saying it is illegal.
Now, overall, the supreme organ of the Supreme Council is the General Assembly. And the General Assembly is the representation of all Muslims in the country. The question is, who mandated them to do that?
Mutumba wants the Muslim community to take charge over their matters than leaving them to people he described as opportunists looking for positions, having lost respect from their former servants.
But I saw the group which came is above 80. A good number of them above 80. I don't know what they are going to do. And also dividing to say that now we are going to share positions. Not sharing it. You have to be elected constitutionally. They have to check on your qualification because they are stipulated qualification.
The parties met at Old Kampala agreed to present their communique to President Yoweri Museveni for approval, which Mutumba termed as politicizing religious affairs.
Why do you have to run to the president to take these the so-called agreement on what? If at all you want to run to President Museveni to rectify it or to follow this, why did you detest the other assignment of Professor Tassis Kabwejere because he compiled the report?
Mutumba reminded the warring factions of the Kabwejere report, which provided recommendations to Unity Muslims, which they rejected, saying it was individualistic.
This is not a political issue, it's a religious issue, which should be supported by the Muslim population. By the way, why should you be in a hurry? And that group came, representing who?
The signing of the deal comes at a time when the Kibuli faction is experiencing a split that prompted the resignation of Sheikh Kasule Ndilangwa as the Supreme Mufti early this year. Abdul Nasir Lubwama, UBC News.
And we do hope unity will be achieved. Growing children into peaceful citizens contributes to the country's stability and development. Parents and communities have a great task of imparting peace education to the young ones to achieve the country's goal. And as we hear in the following report, experts in peace want this initiative inculcated into the national curricula of countries in the Great Lakes region.
Training of peace and education experts open. I thank you.
Experts in peace and security want peace education programs embedded into the national education curriculum. They believe this will help young people appreciate a peaceful environment, foster community stability and development. Head of Peace and Security, Minister of Foreign Affairs Margaret Kedisi says actors in peace will ensure the program runs in both the formal and informal education. Kedesi was representing the national coordinator of the International Conference of Great Lakes Region at the 3-day training in Kampala.
This is the first initiative to have peace education put in the national education curricula. So it's like all along, it's as if we had not recognized the importance. The overall intention is to create harmony and peace in the region, in our Great Lakes region, so that everybody lives happily in harmony and in prosperity.
She implored participants to rise up to their task and perform their duties with diligence, dedication and integrity.
From this program, now we as adults, even if we are not peace experts, even if we are not trained in peace affairs, we have a duty to the youth. We have a duty to educate them. We have a duty to counsel them, to guide them, to model them and to inspire them.
Duncan Mugume, the national expert Uganda, notes that though peace education has been hinted on in the education system, it's not so much enshrined in the curriculum.
Primary school level, it is there, but there are themes of study that talk about peace education. When you go to secondary school, it is narrowed down into CRE subjects or other specific subjects. When you go to the university, Makerere University, the main university, and some other universities I've interacted with don't have specific programs on peace education, apart from master programs that master specific areas on peace.
Today's workshop looks at implementing the 2016 Nairobi Summit discussion, where heads of state in the Great Lakes region agreed to implement. Uganda is among the 4 countries that were selected to contribute and benefit from the ICGLR program. Hilda Mutonyi, Helen Barbara Jizamba, reporting for ABC TV News.
Today in history.
Today marks 3 years since the assassination of the former Buyende District Police Commander Mohamed Chirumira. Born on the 20th May 1983, he joined the police force in 2006 immediately after he attained a degree in education from Chambogo University. Later in 2018, he breathed his last after being assassinated by gunmen.
Airtel Uganda has the best and most affordable rates when it comes to withdrawing and sending money. Withdraw money for as low as 330 shillings up to a maximum of 12,500 shillings. Sending money is just as affordable as ever. Absolutely unbeatable. Use Airtel Money on the most affordable network with the largest network of Airtel Money branches in Uganda. Dial *185# to get started. Airtel Money. Simple, secure, borderless.
Brought to you by
Transact 5 times or more using Center Mobile, Center Visa, and Center Agent. You transact, the higher your chances of winning. So, participate in the 545 jackpot and win millions in daily and weekly prizes. The 545 jackpot is brought to you by Centenary Bank, our bank.
Welcome back from that short break, and let's have a look now at what's happening in the world of business. National Housing and Construction Company Limited has asked government for a budget extension of 300 billion shillings each financial year for better housing units. Now, this was disclosed by the Chief Executive Officer, National Housing, Engineer Kenneth Kaijuka, at a fact-finding mission with the Parliamentary Infrastructure Committee. Ivan Juko reports.
National Housing and Construction, the Ugandan Construction and Real Estate Company, co-owned by the Ugandan and the Libyan governments. The Ugandan government's mandate is to increase the housing stock in the country, rehabilitate the housing industry, and encourage the Parliamentary Infrastructure Committee made an inspection on the company's projects in Kampala. The exercise started at Sunset Apartments in Chwatule, via Jasmine and Nalia Pride Apartments in Nalia, and finally at Impala Estate in Namungona. Committee members were taken around the company's already constructed facilities and those still underway.
3 bedrooms, each level you see.
Ugandan government owns part of the company at a percentage of 51, as the remaining 49% is owned by the Libyan government. Budget allocation and appreciated their great endeavors in extending better housing units amongst Ugandans.
Bad situation of war in Libya, we've had challenges of the company National Housing and Construction Company Limited being owned in a way that two shareholders would own a company. So, as a Committee of Parliament, we are here, want to see how we can engage our government to allocate them more money. It is really good. If they would be given more funds, we really hope the shape and the outline, rather the overview of Kampala would change.
David, however, cited an issue of management stemming from the ownership of the company that could affect it.
Have management issues because of the shareholding. That issue was resolved by court, where there were board members who were kind of there was a court ruling that we should have the company running without being affected by the events in Libya. So if they are not getting money, or if we are going to be faced with the encumbrances of here we don't have the board directors, rather board members, we are not going to run, then that will mean that the company will be bogged down.
The company's Chief Executive Officer, Engineer Kenneth Kaijuka, asked the government for an additional budget for extension of better housing units across the country.
National Housing has not received funds from government budget. to facilitate construction of housing and therefore making it affordable to the buyers, to Ugandans. We need a minimum, because we are coming from zero. We need a minimum of about 300 billion per year for the next 5 years. What that will mean is that we'll be on a rollout development course without waiting to first sell before we can build the next estate.
Ivan Juko, UBC News.
Now, National Water and Sewerage Corporation is in process of producing prepaid water meters to minimize water theft and inconveniences in transactions, among others. The corporation is to work with Uganda Industrial Research Institute, Namamve, due to its infrastructure in human capital and real hardware.
National Water and Sewage Corporation, led by the Executive Director, Engineer Silva Mugisha, have paid a courtesy visit to Uganda Industrial Research Institute, Namamve. Engineer Dr. Silva Mugisha says they are to partner with Uganda Research Institute in the production of prepaid meters to minimize the cost aspect and provision of prepaid water metering.
What has made my day is that we have interfaced with an entity that has all sorts of infrastructure, both in human capital terms and in terms of real hardware infrastructure, where we can team up now and we'll see how we can do this, so that we can change the mindset of every Ugandan, because most Ugandans, they want to buy finished products from those developed countries and bring them here. What we are trying to inculcate now is what we can make. Can we make it from here? Because first of all, it will reduce the cost of our production cost as an entity, and secondly, it will also create jobs for Ugandans.
The prototype National Water and Sewage Corporation prepaid electronic device that has been developed in-house has the circuit design, firmware, programming, among others.
We went into the billing system, created a module which will work with this system, and it has also been tested and it has worked. But as we were testing the first prototype, we saw that there were some shortfalls with our first design. So we started immediately on the upgrade. Now we have already finished the upgrade of
the function of the device will remotely manage the customer matters by receiving mechanical water meter reading through the pulse reader switch.
Otherwise, as an economy, we cannot be so dependent on foreign sources of technology forever. And so it's an opportunity for all of us. I'm glad to meet a progressive, forward-looking leadership of National Water. And together we can break the mold and do things the way we should be doing them as a developing country.
The device will be able to send field status reports in terms of tampering meter reading to reconcile with the credit in the billing system. Sudat Kaye.
Let's have a look now at some sports news, where Speaker of Parliament Jacob Ulanya has advised thorough scouting processes to enable Uganda reap from its abundant pool of sports talent. Ulanya, who acknowledges that Uganda is well endowed, affirms that the talent needs harnessing better legislation to address budget and infrastructure issues. John Bansentamo reports.
Parliament of Uganda has hosted Uganda's Olympics and Paralympics teams to a dinner at Imperial Royal Hotel in Kampala. Speaker Jacob Olanya cited the example of a certain Obura defeating Oduka in athletics at the Peche Stadium in typical David over Goliath style, thus advising a proper scouting to reap from the talent aplenty Uganda has.
We should use this opportunity. Yes, there are people who can box better than I do and better than all those people can do. There are people who can run faster than most of you can do. But they are lost in the villages. Can we begin that process of identification of talents
This, however, can only be done through proper legislation to boost infrastructure and budget, which he promised during his tenure.
We can only expect increases, not reductions. If it was 10 this year, next year it will not be 10. I can guarantee you that.
Donald Rukare is National Council of Sports Board Chairperson and also Uganda Olympic Committee President.
Games, the African Games, the Olympic Games in Paris 2024. And in order for us, Honorable Speaker, to have a bigger team, we need additional resources to the sector, right, for talent identification, preparation, and participation, together with a number of facilities. So it's our humble prayer that you become our ally in the House to seek for additional funding.
Uganda's medalists Peruth Chemutai, Jacob Kiplimo, David Emong and Joshua Cheptegei were rewarded plaques of honor. State Minister for Sports Hamson Obuwa appreciated government contribution while emphasizing what needs attention for continuity.
Two things of budget and infrastructure are the two big thorns in our flesh.
The occasion was graced by many high-profile dignitaries, including Prime Minister Robin Anabanja and the Sports Shadow Minister Geoffrey Kayemba Soro.
But these things of actually, I also spoke last time in the Parliament. These things of congratulating our brothers without participating in their success, it's a mess. It's like we just appreciate the success. We don't mind where the things have come from. So we should add in more effort in building facilities, in budgeting, to see that we prepare more athletes and more sportsmen. Maybe we would have been with more winners than with the people we have now.
The State Minister for Sports Hamson Obuwa used the occasion to officially launch a community sports program to be pioneered by members of Parliament. John Barnes, Sentamo, reporting.
Uganda's contingent from the just-ended Tokyo 2020 Paralympics has returned. The latest have been runner Peace Oroma and swimmer Husna Kukundakwe.
Olympics or Paralympics?
Going there, I was very, very excited. I was very happy just to be able to be going to the Paralympics, very excited to go see the Paralympic village and see people that I've met at other swimming meets. And when I got there, I was very, very happy to be there, because not only was I going to be with legends, I was also going to get the official title of a Paralympian.
She went a step further, being the youngest athlete at the Tokyo 2020 Paralympics and also the first ever Ugandan to grace the pre-games press conference.
Most of the times, TV would introduce me Uganda's only Paralympian and Uganda's only female Paralympian, and I wouldn't exactly take that. I wouldn't feel good having it until now, where I have actually competed. I have actually earned the title of Paralympian, and I'm really, really happy about that. And overall, I had a lot of fun, and I'm just really happy to be back home and see my siblings, my family, who I haven't seen in like 4 months, because I was in a training camp before going for the Paralympics, and I didn't get to see them a lot.
At the Games proper, where Uganda sent 4 athletes, Husna was Uganda's flag bearer at the opening ceremony, an iconic achievement only explained by her mother and chaperone, Hashima Batamuriza.
Oh my God, I felt so happy. I mean, everybody was trying to see who is Husna after the announcement that she was the youngest athlete at the Paralympic Games. Everybody was trying to see who is Husna and from Uganda. So as a mom, I was all happy, I was very smiling all the time, and at one time I would get goose pimples and I'm like, oh, my Husna of yesterday is the celeb at this big event. I was really so happy.
In the Games proper, Husna finished 6th in her heat, and despite not progressing, was an epic performance because she improved her time in the SB8 100 meters breaststroke by 2 seconds. Husna's heritage is rooted in sport, as explained by her grandfather Juma Abdu Biramahaire, a golfer at his prime who missed being part of the 800 meters team at the 1964 Olympics by just 2 seconds.
Husna has really demonstrated that being disabled does not mean inability. in the first place. And secondly, the inheritance of sports in our family. My father was a footballer. I was a runner, a golfer, and a footballer, and many others, and many other members of our family are sportsmen. So sports is not new to us, but her achievement is great. Because for me, in 1964, I failed to qualify for Olympics by 2 seconds.
Husna now takes a break but promises to be back as soon as possible in order to chase her dream of success. John Barnes, Sentamo, reporting.
To badminton now, where Uganda badminton team that represented the country at the Africa Badminton Tournament has presented medals to the National Council of Sports among the 11 countries that competed at the Africa Championship in Benin. Tracy Naluoza won bronze in the ladies singles, while Emudu Expedito and Paul Makade equally won bronze in the team. Presenting the medals to the National Council of Sports, the General Secretary, Ogwell Patrick, promised more funding to performing federations. Uganda is set to host the Africa Seniors Badminton Tournament. Take a watch.
Goes to Uganda Badminton Association and all the partners who supported these children, the parents, to ensure that they love this sport and make us as a country proud. Being a champion, winning a medal, it's not only a show of pride, but I think it is one way to expose the fact that you are gifted. So it is one component we want to build on, that we have enough talents in this country to build on, and possibly we would prepare them for future career development and also livelihood.
And that is what is happening in the world of badminton. And Betway Power has today rewarded brand new Toyota cars and prizes worth of millions to the best winners of Football Challenge penalty kick shoot competition held at Kawira Country Club in Kampala. Now, this was during the launch of various programs aimed at promoting talent for the youth by the BetPower Continental Ambassador Oluwa Tosin Ajibade, a Nigerian singer and entrepreneur.
It was joy at Kawira Country Club when a 30-year-old primary teacher from Bushenyi district, Baliayanga Francis, won a brand new Toyota worth 300 million shillings from BetPower. The cheerful Baliayanga, a father of 6, beat other 7 participants after he obtained winning points in the challenge penalty shootouts competition.
And I feel very, very, very excited for the car I have won. I feel I'm not myself for sure. Thank God for putting me at this stage.
According to the marketing coordinator, BetPower Uganda, Livingston Mugambe, the gesture is part of the social corporate responsibility aimed at rewarding their clients amidst COVID-19 pandemic.
With a program called EPL launch. So the EPL launch, we were advising them to bet on the first Premier League games, and we were supposed to choose the lucky 8 finalists.
He says the company has launched a countrywide campaign to promote talents.
And it's similar to the exact same thing I do with Empower, which is investing small in artists and then hopefully seeing some of the artists grow. So
whereby we are going to be going throughout the country in a period of 1 month, collecting people's dream ideas, and we hope the luck 10 or 20 people to achieve their dreams by financing them.
Other finalists who participated in the penalty shootout used the special soccer board to act as the goalpost, walked away with cash prizes worth over 10 million shillings. The winners placed a bet in August during the English Premier League matches on BetPower, which enabled them to qualify.
Are you ready?
And that interesting story there almost brings us to the end of this bulletin. But before we leave you, let's have a quick reminder of our top stories. In our news headlines tonight, site engineers in trouble over collapsing buildings. NHCC asks government for 300 billion budget extension. Paralympian Husna returns to a grand reception. And Uganda to host Africa's Seniors Badminton Tournament. And that's all we had time for. Thank you so much for having kept us company. On sign language, it has been Elizabeth Nakakoni, and I am Rukidi Edward Kiijanangoma. Wishing you a blessed night, but I'll leave you with Kiijanangoma with the weather forecast for tomorrow. Bye.
Very warm welcome. My name is Molin Kenyana. Time now to look at our weather report. Thank you very much for watching UBC News. Well, we will start it off with our 24-hour report. Throughout last night into the early hours of today morning, we had heavy showers across southwestern Uganda. Mbara was reporting a total of 30.7 millimeters. We also have Masaka with a total of 22.7 millimeters. Kampala was also reporting 18.5 millimeters, quite some moderate rains over there. Now, looking at our satellites, we do have southeasterly winds that are coming in from the Indian Ocean, and those are coming in all the way towards our country. That is responsible for the weather conditions that we've had today, especially across eastern Uganda as well as the Lake Victoria Basin. Well, at the same time, we also see that conditions now later as the day progresses, we shall see more rains developing across most areas within the country, and most of those are going to be accompanied by thunder showers, although we're expecting to have sunny intervals that will be across southwestern Uganda and a few areas across eastern Uganda. Now, daytime highs, we're forecasting a maximum of 28. That will be across Kampala. Quite a warm day for Soroti. We're likely to go up to 31. We also have 30 for the Karamoja region. Also a warm day over there. But looking at Kigezi Highlands, we're forecasting quite a cold day. Temperatures will rise up to 25 degrees centigrade. Now, some of the wild cities that we have for you, we're forecasting showers. Those will be across New York as well as Moscow. Also, sunny intervals are forecast for London and Pretoria. With Pretoria, temperatures will rise up to 24 degrees centigrade. Well, we're seeing a sunny day still forecast across Dubai, but very hot conditions. Temperatures will be going up to 42 degrees centigrade. And that brings us to the end. Thank you very much for being a part of this, and have a good night.
Если ты думаешь, что ты особенный, и то, что вас не коснется пандемии, вы глубоко заблуждаетесь.
Емкость органа ограничена, куда более гуманно тела складываются в рефрижератор. В некоторых других госпиталях тела складываются в коридоре, просто в пакеты.
We are definitely walking into a war zone, and we no longer know what we're walking into.
I got sick on March 19th.
Уже больше 70 врачей умерло в Италии.
He said, I can't breathe, don't tell mom and dad, I love you, and then he said he was going to go to sleep.
Включайте, пожалуйста, голову и сядьте дома. Все.
The coronavirus outbreak has changed the world. No one can say for sure when it might end. For now, news bulletins look more like dispatches from the front lines. Some countries have run out of coffins and others are digging mass graves. Doctors and nurses are the heroes of the day, so we approach some to ask how they're coping with the outbreak and what to expect.
Я сама в начале февраля, когда все это было в Китае, мне это было абсолютно неинтересно. Я за этим не следила. Мне казалось, ну что это, Китай на другом конце света, разве это до нас дойдет? И поэтому я стала блогером, потому что я через это прошла. И я не хочу, чтобы кто-то повторил мой путь. И если я могу кому-то помочь не проделать моих ошибок, Вот что самое главное.
Irina Shlichkova works in Italy, one of the first countries in Europe to be affected by the outbreak. COVID-19's patient zero was diagnosed here in late February. After just a month, the number of cases had soared to 50,000 and more than 4,000 had died. It later turned out that the virus had spread to the Italian province of Lombardy much earlier, and each carrier passed it on to at least 3 others. Local newspapers reported an unprecedented increase in the number of pneumonia patients.
Кто этого не видел, может сказать, что это не страшно, это все пройдет. Я вот просто всем желаю, чтобы это была легкая форма. Но если это тяжелая форма, как это страшно. Это дыхание, как у собаки, вываленный язык, и вот он просто дышит 40 актов в минуту. Вот так, понимаете? Вот такое дыхание, у него выпученные глаза, он ничего сказать не может. У него синие вот такие посиневшие уже руки, потому что нет кислорода в крови.
А я здесь. It was only a few weeks ago that Irina saw her first coronavirus patient. She had no protective clothing and has worn a mask at home ever since, because she fears infecting her own family.
Самое сложное – это моя малышка. Ей хочется меня обнять, поцеловать, прижаться ко мне. А вот это я. Привет. Мы находимся примерно на метре друг от друга.
Я так просила, чтобы, если я должна работать, оставьте меня в больнице, я буду работать 24 часа в сутки, не отправляйте меня домой. Тогда мы все перешли вот на это дистанционное. Никто ко мне близко не подходит.
Наши кошки все держатся от меня на расстоянии. Его муж убегает, вот, он, пожалуйста, он вообще со мной не контактирует.
И вот этот дезинфектант, я захожу домой, первое, что я делаю, снимаю обувь, убираю ее в шкаф, потому что обувь не нужно ни в коем случае не чистить, не мыть, нужно ее сразу убрать в шкаф. Я потом сразу делаю вот так свои руки, и потом сразу же одеваю маску, потому что в машине маску я снимаю, вот, потом одеваю маску дома. Она вас от коронавируса не спасет, но она спасет окружающих.
Northern Italy's hospitals are so overwhelmed, the authorities have had to set up mobile clinics. To curb the outbreak, 14 provinces placed under quarantine, and it was almost impossible to move in or out of those areas, and 16 million people had to endure a near total lockdown.
Noi avevamo 8 posti di terapia intensiva, adesso siamo arrivati ad averne 50, per cui dobbiamo in qualche maniera far fronte a una marea di persone, che sono oltre 100 persone, perché 50 sono qui e altri 50 li abbiamo trasferiti.
Noi ci ritroviamo con persone dentro che stanno già sostando magari anche da qualche giorno in attesa di un posto letto, a persone che comunque arrivano in giornata e che sviluppano questa insufficienza respiratoria.
When a lockdown was introduced in Russia, the situation was still relatively calm. A self-isolation regime was imposed to mitigate the outbreak, but not everyone was keen to stay at home.
Без эмоций попытаюсь объяснить то, что сейчас происходит, то, что лично меня крайне возмущает.
Paramedic Victoria Shutova could see how things might develop and published her own personal appeal.
Коронавирус сейчас мутировал, как говорят нам все СМИ, и из-за того, что он мутировал, начали болеть люди среднего возраста. Причем болеть достаточно тяжело, и поэтому я вас очень прошу, включите наконец-то голову, я сейчас обращаюсь к молодым, включите наконец-то голову и сядьте по домам. Посадите своих стариков по домам, сядьте сами по домам. Я сегодня с утра иду на работу, я не могу не выйти на работу, но я еду на работу, и на той же Популе стоят пробки. Куча народу, который ходит. Оденьте маску, оденьте перчатки и сядьте по домам. Я человек, который потенциально переносит коронавирус. Я прихожу домой, у меня пустая квартира, у меня 3 детей, у меня близкий человек, мне пришлось всех разогнать, потому что я понимаю, что для них это прямая угроза. То, что я работаю на скорой. Я прихожу домой, у меня тихо в квартире, у меня пусто в квартире. А я могу, итальянцы приходят домой, у них тихо и пусто в квартире, потому что у них умерли все. Вы будете вызывать нас, мы будем приезжать, но не факт, что именно для вас у нас хватит кислорода в кислородном баллоне. Включайте, пожалуйста, голову и сядьте дома.
Victoria's video was seen more than 12 million times on social networks, but not everyone believed her. A stubborn few still seem to think that coronavirus is not particularly scary and that it's all a conspiracy of sorts. But many were grateful for the warning. Now, in her spare time, Victoria replies to her messages.
Я стараюсь скрывать все личные сообщения, которые мне приходят, потому что люди пишут много людей пишут такой вот на истерике, когда они не знают, что делать, не знают, что делать там с ребенком, не знают, что делать там с бабушкой со своей, да, которая там в температуре лежит дома и боится там вызвать и скорую, и поликлинику, что ее заберут. Ну, пускай это будет капля в море в плане, ну, общероссийского масштаба, да, но при этом я считаю, что мой, ну, так, это не пафосные, причем слова, действительно так считаю, что мой долг как гражданина, как медицинского работника ответить на эти вопросы. И по психологической части, да, по эмоциональной, работа стала в разы тяжелее. Вот прям в разы. И, может быть, тоже количество вызовов, выездов, бригад, но при этом все очень уставшие. Именно из эмоциональной, психологической составляющей. Потому что, ну, очень много есть, когда люди срываются, паникуют, и тебе необходимо успокоить это. Это много сил.
Since filming began, Russia has seen a surge in COVID-19 infections with more than 20,000 new cases. Ambulances have to queue outside Moscow's hospitals.
Она затронет всех. Я вас просто сердечно умоляю,